A black girl's hair was ripped in the middle of a packed school cafeteria, and the loudest sound wasn't her scream. It was the laughter. The bullies thought humiliating the new girl would make them kings for another day. They never imagined they had just crossed the one line that would expose an entire system built on lies, cover-ups, and racial injustice. By the time her father walked through those cafeteria doors, everyone believed they had already won. They were wrong. What happened next would leave an entire school frozen in silence. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're watching this video from, and stay until the very end. You won't be disappointed by how this story ends. Logan Whitmore wrapped Amara Collins's curls around his fist as if her hair were a rope, yanked her head backward, and laughed loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear. "I just wanted to see where your real hair starts," he sneered. Students gasped, but more raised their phones. Rhett Lawson was already filming from the perfect angle, while Madison Vale stood beside him holding the empty cup she had used to spill soda across Amara's lunch tray. None of it was accidental. They had crowded her table, mocked her, blocked her path, and waited for anger. They wanted her to swing first. They wanted one explosive second they could cut and post as proof that the new black girl was dangerous. But Amara refused to give them what they wanted. Pain shot through her scalp as Logan pulled harder. She planted one hand against the table and used the other to pry at his fingers. "Let go of me," she said, through clenched teeth. Logan only tightened his grip. Eli Turner stood behind him, pale and silent, doing nothing to stop it. From the serving counter, Sophia Ramirez rushed forward. "Security. He's hurting her," she shouted. Grant Hollis, the school's security chief, stood less than 30 feet away. He had watched long enough to see Logan grab Amara, yet he moved only after she twisted free and shoved Logan's arm away from her neck. Hollis crossed the room quickly, but instead of restraining Logan, he seized Amara's wrist and forced her against the table. "Stop resisting," he barked. Madison immediately screamed that Amara had attacked Logan. Rhett lowered his phone at precisely the moment Logan released her hair. His video now began with Amara struggling and Hollis restraining her. While the assault that caused it had vanished, Logan adjusted his yellow varsity jacket as if he were the victim. Amara's cheek pressed against the cold tabletop, her wrist burning under Hollis's grip, while humiliation spread through the cafeteria faster than the truth. Then the double doors opened. Darius Collins had arrived to take his daughter to a dental appointment. But the scene stopped him cold. He saw Amara bent over the table, Hollis gripping her arm, Logan standing free, and several curls still trapped between the boy's fingers. Darius did not charge forward. He placed his phone on a table, activated the recorder, and spoke in a voice so controlled that the cafeteria fell silent. "Mr. Hollis, release my daughter. Mr. Whitmore, remain where you are and do not touch anything." Hollis turned. "Who are you to give orders here?" Darius met his stare. "A man who just watched you restrain the victim while protecting her attacker." Hollis threatened to have him arrested for interfering with school security. Darius calmly told him to call the police. He also demanded that every camera recording be preserved, every witness separated, and Amara examined before anyone questioned her. Logan immediately called his father. Less than 2 minutes later, Principal Malcolm Ridley hurried into the cafeteria. Though his office was across campus, he did not ask whether Amara was injured or why Logan had her hair in his hand. "We are not turning a misunderstanding between students into a public relations crisis," he announced. Darius studied him carefully. Ridley was not investigating an assault. He was managing a story. When Darius demanded that the cafeteria footage be locked, Vice Principal Evelyn Shaw arrived with a tablet and claimed the system had failed during the exact 6 minutes surrounding the attack. Darius slowly looked toward the ceiling. Above them, the camera's red status light was still blinking. The camera had not failed. Someone was lying. Darius had entered Brookstone Heights, believing he had interrupted a brutal act of bullying. Those missing 6 minutes told him something worse. Logan was only the hand in Amara's hair. Behind him stood a system, already prepared to bury the truth. Amara had not even been examined when Principal Malcolm Ridley placed a 2-page confession in front of her and tapped the signature line already marked in red ink. The document described the cafeteria assault as a mutual physical altercation and claimed Amara had provoked Logan Whitmore before school security was forced to restrain her. Her scalp was still bleeding beneath her curls, and every movement sent pain down her neck. Yet, Ridley spoke as if her injury were less important than protecting the school's reputation. Vice Principal Evelyn Shaw entered carrying 3 statements from Logan, Rhett Lawson, and Madison Vale. Each one claimed Amara had insulted Logan and attacked him without warning. Darius read the pages carefully and immediately noticed that all 3 statements used the same unnatural phrases, followed the same sentence order, and contained the exact same spelling mistake. 3 students did not independently write the same lie in the same words. He said. Shaw insisted they had simply witnessed the same event. Darius placed the pages side by side. Witnesses repeat facts. They do not produce copies. Ridley told him to stop making accusations. But Darius remained calm. I am not accusing anyone. Your paperwork is doing that for me. In the nurse's office, Grace Holloway gently separated Amara's curls and found a torn patch of skin near the back of her scalp. Several strands had been ripped out, and the muscles around her neck were already swelling. Grace began documenting a scalp abrasion, possible cervical strain, and pain radiating toward Amara's shoulder. Before she could finish, Shaw walked in and ordered her to replace the description with minor discomfort following a student disagreement. Darius immediately photographed the original notes. Shaw told him photography was not allowed. Neither is falsifying a medical record. He replied. Grace lowered her voice and admitted another nurse had been fired the previous year after refusing to minimize an injury caused by a star football player. Shaw warned her not to discuss private personnel matters. Grace stared at the clipboard, then restored the original wording and signed beneath it. The confrontation happened in the cafeteria, she said quietly. This is medical evidence. Back in the administrative office, Shaw opened Amara's disciplinary file and prepared a 5-day suspension. Darius noticed the document information displayed on the screen. The file had been created at 1121 a.m. The attack had occurred at 1138. Why was my daughter's punishment written 17 minutes before Logan touched her? He asked. Shaw quickly minimized the window and claimed the system clock was wrong. Darius pointed to several other files created that morning. Every timestamp matched the official office log exactly. The disciplinary form had not been written after the assault. Someone had known Amara would be provoked and had prepared her punishment before she reacted. Ridley dismissed it as an administrative error. But Darius demanded that the file metadata, emails, camera recordings, and internal messages be preserved from this moment forward. He said, anything deleted will not be an accident. Before Ridley could answer, phones throughout the office began vibrating. Logan had posted Rhett's edited video online. The clip began with Amara pushing Logan's arm away and ended with Hollis forcing her against the cafeteria table. The hair pulling, racial insults, spilled drink, and security delay had all been removed. Logan added the caption, "New girl loses it and attacks baseball captain." Within an hour, the video gained thousands of views. Madison encouraged her followers to call the school and demand Amara's expulsion. Ridley used the manufactured outrage as justification for suspending her, claiming Brookstone Heights had to protect its students from a potential threat. Darius refused to leave without the original cafeteria footage. Hollis stepped closer and warned that Darius could be arrested for trespassing. That was when Darius revealed he was not merely an angry parent. He worked as an independent consultant for a statewide school safety review, and Brookstone Heights was already scheduled for evaluation. Ridley's face went pale as Amara gathered her belongings. Sofia Ramirez passed beside her and slipped a cafeteria receipt into her pocket. On the back, she had written, "I recorded everything from the beginning, but they just took my phone." Amara looked toward the hallway and saw Hollis gripping Sofia's arm, leading her toward a windowless security room with no camera above the door. If Sofia's recording still existed, it could destroy the story Brookstone Heights had prepared before the attack ever happened. But first, Darius had to discover what was happening inside the one-room school security called an unrecorded area. When the security room door closed, Grant Hollis placed Sofia Ramirez's phone on the table and leaned toward her. "One video can cost your family more than you understand," he said. Outside, Darius demanded access because Sofia was a minor being questioned without a parent or attorney present. Hollis refused to open the door, insisting she was only answering a few voluntary questions. Then Amara heard Sofia crying. Darius activated the recorder on his phone and ordered Evelyn Shaw to contact Sofia's guardian immediately. Shaw claimed her family had already been notified. But Darius called Sofia's mother himself. She answered from work, terrified and confused. No one from Brookstone Heights had contacted her. Inside the room, Hollis slid a prepared statement towards Sofia and ordered her to sign it. The statement said she had not seen Logan pull Amara's hair and that Amara had appeared aggressive before security intervened. When Sofia refused, Hollis mentioned the uncle living with her family and threatened to contact immigration authorities. Though he had no legal grounds to do so, people who create problems invite questions, he said, shaking. Sofia signed. Hollis then forced her to unlock her phone and deleted the cafeteria video in front of her. When Sofia was finally released, she kept her eyes lowered and told Shaw she had made a mistake. "I don't have any evidence," she whispered. Hollis looked satisfied, but as she passed Amara, Sofia barely moved her lips. Library. Computer 12. Darius understood immediately that her fear was partly an act. They waited until Hollis returned to Ridley's office, then hurried across campus to the library. Sofia explained that her phone automatically uploaded videos to her student account whenever it connected to the school Wi-Fi. Before Hollis took it, she had opened the account on Computer 12 to force the synchronization. The video should still have been there. Yet when she logged in, the folder was empty. Jonah Kim, the library's systems coordinator, checked the access records and found that an administrator had deleted the file only 3 minutes earlier. The account belonged to Evelyn Shaw. Shaw had not merely pressured Sofia into changing her statement. She had followed the digital trail and tried to erase the only complete recording. Jonah told them the deletion was not permanent. The library server retained temporary copies for 6 hours, and he could restore the file if no one interrupted the system. He began the recovery process. The progress bar reached 12%. Then the entire library went dark. Computers shut down. Emergency lights failed to activate. And the server's backup battery remained silent. Through the windows, however, the gymnasium lights were still burning. Darius looked outside and understood at once. This was not a campus-wide outage. Someone had cut power only to the library. He rushed toward the maintenance corridor while Jonah tried to keep the server alive manually. At the electrical panel behind the gym, Darius found Eli Turner with one hand still resting near the main breaker. Eli looked frightened. He admitted Logan had ordered him to shut it off to scare the rats in the library. Darius did not grab him or raise his voice. "Do you know who they will blame when this becomes a crime?" he asked. Eli's expression changed. For the first time, he seemed to understand that Logan would sacrifice him without hesitation. Before Eli could say more, Logan appeared with Hollis. Logan immediately accused Darius of cornering and threatening a student. Hollis ordered Darius away from the panel and demanded permission to search him for stolen property. Darius refused, but Hollis claimed school policy gave him authority during an active security incident. Shaw and Ridley arrived moments later, conveniently prepared to support him. Hollis reached into Darius's coat and pulled out a black USB drive marked with Brookstone Heights inventory numbers. Darius had never seen it before. Hollis inserted it into a nearby laptop. The screen displayed student usernames, private records, and a folder labeled Sophia Backup. Hollis turned toward the others with carefully rehearsed outrage. He stole protected school data and planted evidence to support his daughter, he announced. Ridley ordered someone to call the police. Logan smiled from behind him, while Eli stared at the floor. Realizing exactly how the trap had been arranged, Darius did not panic. He told Hollis to remove his hands from the keyboard and preserve the USB as evidence. Hollis refused and accused him of attempting to control the investigation. As sirens approached, Darius's phone vibrated. Jonah had sent a message from inside the darkened library. "Do not let them open that drive on a school computer. It does not contain only Sophia's video. It contains files on 18 other students." Darius looked at the USB in Hollis's hand and understood the mistake his enemies had made. They had planted it to send him to jail. But in doing so, they had placed an entire archive of buried cases within reach of the one person trained to preserve a compromised evidence chain. The device could destroy his reputation before the day ended. It could also expose something far larger than the assault on Amara. Darius was handcuffed in front of his daughter, while Logan stood across the parking lot smiling. But no one seemed to understand that the cuffs had just transformed a school scandal into a criminal investigation. Assistant Chief Vincent Pike arrived and accepted Hollis's version of events without hesitation. He did not dust the USB for fingerprints, review the hallway cameras, or ask how a school-owned device had appeared inside Darius's coat. When Amara protested, Pike warned that he would arrest her for obstruction. Darius remained calm. Before being placed in the patrol car, he read the evidence number printed on the USB aloud and demanded that the report state clearly that the device had not been opened in his presence. Pike asked why that mattered. "Because the moment you access it," Darius replied, "every action becomes part of the chain of custody." Pike's expression hardened. Logan's smile faded slightly. At the station, school attorney Patricia Voss entered the interview room carrying a settlement agreement. She offered to have Darius released immediately if he withdrew every complaint, agreed not to speak publicly, and transferred Amara to another school. The document also required him to admit that his behavior had created unnecessary fear on campus. Darius read the final page, then pushed it back across the table. "You came here faster than my lawyer could," he said. "That tells me this arrest was not a surprise." Voss claimed she was only trying to protect Amara from further conflict. Darius answered, "You are trying to remove the witness, the victim, and the parent asking questions, all with one signature." He refused the deal. Pike carried the USB into the station's technical office and attempted to open it on a department computer. The folders appeared, but every file requested a second authentication code. Jonah had quietly activated two-factor protection before the library lost power. Each failed login attempt was recorded and automatically transmitted to an external server. Darius watched through the open doorway as Pike tried several passwords, then ordered a technician to bypass the lock. "Do you have a warrant?" Darius asked. Pike turned sharply. "The device was found on you," Darius replied. "A school device containing student records. connected to an alleged school incident, and you are rushing to open it before verifying ownership. Why, Pike told him to remain silent, but his anger revealed more than any answer could have. While Darius was detained, Amara and Sophia returned to the library and met Jonah in a locked equipment room. He had recovered fragments of the temporary server archive before the power failure. Sophia's video was there, but it was only one file among dozens. The remaining folders were labeled with student names. Most belonged to Black students, low-income students, scholarship recipients, or children who had previously reported misconduct by athletes. Jonah opened one folder. Inside was a sequence of instructions: provoke the student, position a phone where only the reaction would be recorded, prepare a disciplinary report in advance, disable the nearest camera, pressure witnesses, and offer the family a transfer if they agreed to remain silent. Another folder contained screenshots, edited clips, medical notes, and private family information saved for possible leverage. Amara counted 18 names before finding her own. She was number 19. Her file had been created 3 days before the cafeteria attack. On the same afternoon, she reported seeing Logan shove a younger student into a locker. The complaint had never reached the district. Instead, it had marked here as a problem. Sophia suddenly froze. One of the older folders carried her brother Mateo's name. 2 years earlier, he had been expelled for allegedly attacking a star athlete. Her family had always insisted he acted in self-defense, but the school claimed the camera had failed. The folder contained an edited video, a pre-written suspension notice, and a note reading, "Family likely to accept transfer under pressure." Sophia covered her mouth and began to cry. Amara stared at the screen and understood that what happened in the cafeteria was not an isolated act of cruelty. It was a system with instructions, templates, and a list of targets. Back at the station, Pike was forced to release Darius because he could not prove that the USB had ever been under Darius's control before Hollis found it. However, he refused to return the device and announced that it would remain in evidence for technical examination. The moment Darius stepped outside, his phone displayed an automated warning from Jonah's security protocol. A remote command was attempting to erase the drive. Darius turned back toward the station, but an alarm erupted before he reached the door. Smoke began pouring from the evidence storage wing. Officers rushed through the hallway as sprinklers activated. Minutes later, Pike emerged and announced that the USB had been destroyed in the fire. Darius said nothing. His eyes dropped to Pike's shoes. Wedged into the tread near the heel was a small piece of melted black plastic. A white inventory number remained visible on its edge, the same number Darius had read aloud before his arrest. The USB had not simply burned inside the evidence room. Pike had handled it after the fire began, or perhaps before the flames were ever set. Until that moment, Darius had suspected the school administration and its private security contractor. The fragment on Pike's shoe proved the cover-up reached into local law enforcement, and anyone willing to burn evidence inside a police station would not hesitate to destroy the people who knew what it contained. The fire consumed the police evidence room in 8 minutes. But what unsettled Vincent Pike was not the destruction of the USB. It was the fact that Darius never once asked whether a copy existed. Pike stood beneath the flashing emergency lights, soot darkening the shoulders of his uniform, and repeated that the device had been completely destroyed. Darius only watched him. The melted fragment bearing the evidence number was still trapped in the tread of Pike's shoe, and Pike had not yet noticed. Later that night, Jonah contacted Darius through an encrypted channel and explained why the fire had failed. When the USB was connected to the police computer, Jonah's security program had automatically copied its folder, structure, and partial file data to an outside encrypted server. The backup was incomplete, but it preserved enough timestamps Philanamis, and access records to prove that Brookstone Heights had systematically manipulated student files, Darius immediately sent the recovered data, photographs of Amara's original medical report, the timestamp on her pre-written suspension, and the deletion logs from the library to Dr. Celeste Warren, a special state investigator. Amara listened from the doorway of their living room as her father spoke to Celeste in a language of evidence chains, metadata preservation, and emergency warrants. When the call ended, she asked the question she had been holding back all day. How did you know exactly who to contact? Darius remained silent for several seconds before admitting that he had not gone to Brookstone merely to take her to a dental appointment for 6 months. He had been assisting a confidential investigation into minority students who were forced to transfer after violent incidents that somehow occurred during camera failures. He had kept the investigation secret because he believed secrecy would protect both the sources and his family. The dental appointment had only explained why he was near the campus. Before entering the cafeteria, he had been preparing to meet an internal source who claimed the school was staging disciplinary cases. That source was Eli Turner. Eli had been quietly sending Darius documents because his cousin had been expelled from Brookstone after a suspicious fight the previous year. He knew Logan was dangerous, but he feared Logan's father even more, which was why he continued obeying orders while secretly collecting evidence. Darius arranged to meet Eli at an abandoned district records warehouse outside town. Amara insisted on going, refusing to be excluded from an investigation built around her own assault. Sophia and Jonah remained nearby to maintain contact with Celeste. Eli arrived carrying a small memory card hidden inside the plastic cover of an old student identification badge. His hand shook as he passed it to Darius. The card contained messages exchanged between Logan and Hollis. One read, "When Collins reacts, restrain her. Her father will appear. We need both of them discredited." Darius stared at the screen. The cafeteria attack had not been designed only to remove Amara. They had expected him to intervene, lose control, and destroy his own credibility. His daughter had been used as bait in an operation aimed at ending the state investigation. Before Eli could explain the remaining files, the warehouse doors opened. Hollis entered with 2 private security officers and accused Eli of stealing district property. He demanded the memory card. Darius kept him talking, while Amara quietly activated the recorder on her phone. Hollis claimed the records belonged to Brookstone and threatened everyone with prosecution. When Darius asked why a school security chief cared so deeply about old real estate documents, Hollis lost control. "Sebastian Whitmore will bury every one of you if that construction project is threatened," he snapped. The admission hung in the warehouse. Darius took one slow step closer. What construction project? Police sirens interrupted before Hollis could answer. Darius assumed Celeste had sent state officers. But Vincent Pike entered instead. He arrested Eli for theft and accused Darius of manipulating a minor into stealing confidential material. Hollis ordered everyone searched. Before an officer reached her, Amara slipped the memory card beneath the inner lining of her shoe. Pike found nothing on Darius and confiscated their phones. But Amara's recording had already uploaded automatically. Hours later, after they were released, Amara removed the memory card at home. It did not contain more cafeteria footage or ordinary school messages. It contained land maps, payment schedules, shell company records, and a development proposal labeled Brookstone Expansion Phase 2. The final approval page carried the signature of Sebastian Whitmore. Until that moment, the Collins family believed the school had buried violence to protect a baseball team. The maps revealed something far more dangerous. The bullying, expulsion, and destroyed evidence were connected to a land project worth tens of millions of dollars. The list on the memory card did not identify students by the fights they had survived. It recorded the value of their family homes before and after they were forced out of Brookstone Heights. At the Collins house, Darius and Dr. Celeste Warren spread maps, payment records, and property reports across the dining table, while Jonah traced the shell companies listed in the files. The pattern was unmistakable. Sebastian Whitmore planned to expand Brookstone Heights Academy with a private athletic complex and a luxury shopping center. To control the land surrounding the project, Whitmore Development needed dozens of properties in South Briar, a neighborhood where many Black and Latino families had lived for generations. Those homes were too expensive while the neighborhood remained stable. So the system created instability. A child was labeled violent, suspended, or expelled. The family's reputation suffered. Parents transferred jobs or moved closer to another school. Nearby property values fell, and a Whitmore Shell Company arrived, with a low offer disguised as financial relief. The cruelty had never been limited to protecting Logan or Brookstone's sports program. The edited videos, missing camera footage, false medical reports, and pre-written disciplinary forms were parts of a mechanism designed to remove families from valuable land. The entire expansion project was valued at $42 million. Amara's name appeared beside a highlighted parcel at the center of the development map. The Collins home stood directly where the proposed main entrance to the shopping center would be built. Darius had rejected 3 purchase offers during the previous year, each one arriving through a different company. He had assumed investors were speculating in the area. Now he understood the cafeteria assault had been staged to create a disciplinary crisis, force Amara out of Brookstone, and make the family feel unsafe enough to sell. Amara stared at the map in disbelief. Logan had pulled her hair for entertainment, but the adults behind him had turned her humiliation into a real estate strategy. Celeste said the evidence was strong enough to request emergency warrants, but she still needed Eli's direct testimony to connect Sebastian, Ridley, and Hollis to the plan before she could arrange an interview. They learned Eli had been transferred from juvenile detention to the county hospital after what officials described as self-inflicted injuries. Eli's mother called Darius in tears and insisted her son had been beaten in custody. When Darius reached the hospital, Pike had already stationed officers outside Eli's room and ordered staff not to admit visitors. He claimed Eli was under protective supervision. Darius recognized the tactic: immediately control access, isolate the witness, then shape the story before anyone else could speak to him. Amara refused to wait. With Sophia's help, she entered through the hospital kitchen, wearing borrowed service aprons and pushing a cart of sealed meal trays. They reached Eli's room through a staff corridor, while Darius argued with Pike at the main entrance. Eli was awake but terrified, with bruising along his jaw and wrists. He told Amara that Logan had not chosen her on his own. Principal Ridley had selected the targets after Sebastian supplied a list of homeowners who refused to sell. Hollis then instructed Logan on how to provoke each student without causing injuries that would look serious in photographs. Eli whispered a password and told Amara it opened a cloud account containing recordings of meetings between Ridley, Hollis, and Sebastian before he could explain more. The hospital fire alarm began to sound. A man in a nurse's uniform entered carrying a syringe and claimed Eli needed a sedative before evacuation. Amara noticed that his badge was turned backward and that the medication label had been removed. When he reached for Eli's foreline, she pulled the emergency cord and shouted for help. The man grabbed her wrist, but Darius burst into the room seconds later. He caught the man's forearm, forced the syringe away, and pinned him against the wall without striking him. Hospital security detained the intruder, who was later identified as an employee of a private security company owned by Sebastian Whitmore. Once Eli was safe, Jonah used the password to access the cloud account. The first recording opened with Sebastian's voice. "Do not hurt the girl too badly." He said, "We only need people to believe. She is dangerous." Then a woman answered, calm and unmistakably familiar. "I will handle her file." Amara looked at her father. The voice did not belong to Evelyn Shaw. It belonged to Dr. Celeste Warren. The woman Darius trusted to lead the investigation might have helped design the trap that nearly destroyed his daughter. Darius placed the recording in front of Celeste Warren and asked only one question. "Did you choose my daughter? Or did you simply help them choose the right target?" Celeste did not deny the voice. She admitted that 3 years earlier, while serving as legal counsel for the district, she had designed an early intervention system meant to identify students who might become violent. Sebastian Whitmore and Principal Ridley later twisted it into a list of target students who reported athletes, challenged administrators, or lived on property. Whitmore wanted. Celeste discovered the abuse too late. But Sebastian held her signed approval and threatened to blame the entire operation on her. Since then, she had been quietly collecting evidence. Darius had been recruited because he worked outside the district and could not be controlled. But when Amara asked whether Celeste knew the Collins family was on the development list, Celeste hesitated. She admitted she had known, but never believed the school would move against Amara so quickly. Amara's anger was immediate. "You treated me like an acceptable risk," she said. "You built the machine, then watched to see who it crushed." Darius no longer trusted Celeste, yet he still needed her authority to obtain warrants. Amara wanted every document released immediately. Arguing that publicity was now their only protection, Darius refused, warning that incomplete evidence could be dismissed as fabrication and would give Sebastian time to destroy the originals. Their argument became personal. Amara accused her father of speaking for her while forgetting that she was the one who had been dragged by the hair, branded violent, and humiliated before the entire school. Darius finally admitted the truth. "I arrived in time to stop that hand from pulling you again," he said, "but I arrived too late to understand how long you had already been carrying this alone." Amara did not forgive him, but she stopped walking away. Eli then provided the location of a private records warehouse used by Whitmore Development. He claimed it contained original contracts, raw surveillance footage, and financial records connecting Sebastian to the staged disciplinary cases Darius, Amara, Celeste, Jonah, and Sophia reached the site before dawn. But the building had already been emptied. The shelves were bare. A commercial shredder was still running, and warm ash filled a steel container near the loading bay. Someone had left only minutes earlier. Jonah accessed a traffic camera across the road and found footage of a white box truck leaving with sealed document containers. The license plate belonged to a Whitmore-controlled company. Using toll records and the vehicle's active fleet signal, Jonah traced its route. It was not heading toward Sebastian's office or another storage facility. It was driving directly toward Brookstone Heights Academy. At that exact moment, the school board was preparing an emergency hearing to permanently expel Amara. The evidence that could clear her name was being delivered into the same building where Sebastian's people controlled the entrances, cameras, basement, and every locked door, while Amara stood before the board defending herself against a story written in advance. The truck carrying the truth was moving straight into the hands of those determined to destroy it. The disciplinary hearing began with an empty chair reserved for Amara, because the board had prepared to vote on her expulsion before she even entered the room. Principal Ridley read the charges in a flat, practiced voice assaulting Logan Whitmore, stealing protected school data, manipulating witnesses, and creating a threat to campus safety. Sebastian Whitmore sat in the front row beside the school's attorney, presenting Logan as the victim of a revenge campaign supposedly organized by Darius. Then the edited Cafeteria video appeared on the large screen. It showed Amara pushing Logan's arm away and Hollis restraining her. But nothing before that moment The spilled drink, the insults, and Logan's fist wrapped in her hair were gone. When Amara demanded the full recording, Ridley said no longer version existed. Sophia stood to testify, but the school attorney immediately questioned her family's immigration situation and suggested she had been pressured by Darius. Amara rose from her chair. "You threatened a minor, took her phone, and now you are attacking her family because she saw what happened," she said. The hearing shifted instantly. Parents began shouting questions, and several raised their phones to record. While the room erupted, Jonah and Celeste tracked the Whitmore truck entering the school's underground loading area. Security footage showed Hollis directing workers to move sealed boxes toward an abandoned furnace in the technical basement. Darius quietly left the hearing to stop the evidence from being destroyed. Sebastian pointed after him and announced that a guilty man was running away. Just before the board could call for a vote, Rhett Lawson walked onto the stage. His face was pale, but his voice was clear. He admitted that he had edited the video under Logan's orders. He had kept the original because Logan often threatened him, and he needed insurance. Rhett connected his phone to the projector. The uncut footage showed Logan approaching Amara first, Madison spilling soda across her lunch, Logan using racist language, then grabbing Amara's hair and pulling her head backward. It showed Hollis standing nearby for nearly 20 seconds without intervening. It showed Amara doing nothing except trying to free herself. Finally, it showed Shaw signaling Rhett to stop recording the moment Darius entered. The auditorium exploded in outrage. Logan lunged for Rhett's phone but was restrained by two staff members. In panic, he shouted, "My father said once she fought back, it would all be over." Every face turned toward Sebastian. He immediately denied involvement and accused Logan of acting alone. Logan stared at him in disbelief, realizing his father was willing to sacrifice him to protect the company. In the basement, Darius reached the furnace as Hollis prepared to destroy the final boxes. Hollis attacked him with a metal bar, but Darius blocked the strike, controlled his arm, and forced him to the floor without unnecessary violence. He secured the scene until state officers arrived. Celeste opened the last container and found contracts signed by Ridley, Pike, and Sebastian, but the highest approval page carried another name, Eleanor Price, the chairwoman of the school board. The woman currently controlling Amara's hearing had not merely known about the conspiracy, she had legalized it for years. Eleanor Price raised her gavel and demanded silence. But behind her, projected across the auditorium screen, was the signature proving that the woman judging Amara had also helped sell her family to a real estate scheme. Darius entered with state officers carrying the recovered contracts from the basement. Eleanor immediately declared the documents forged and attempted to adjourn the hearing. But Celeste stepped forward and released a verified email chain linking Eleanor, Sebastian Whitmore, and Principal Ridley. The messages showed that Eleanor had approved a program called School Demographic Adjustment, a polished phrase designed to hide a brutal purpose, forcing families out of South Briar so Whitmore Development could buy their homes cheaply. Pike then entered and tried to arrest Darius for assaulting Hollis. Before he could reach him, Jonah restored the basement footage. The video showed Hollis swinging a metal bar first, and Darius using only enough force to disarm and restrain him. State officers turned toward Pike instead. Evidence logs connected him to the fire at the police station, the destroyed USB, and Eli's mistreatment in custody. Pike was detained while the hearing continued live, before hundreds of parents and thousands of online viewers, realizing the network was collapsing. Evelyn Shaw offered to cooperate. She admitted that Eleanor had ordered Amara's disciplinary report prepared before the cafeteria attack. In return, Shaw had been promised Ridley's job after his retirement. Ridley immediately blamed Sebastian. Sebastian blamed Eleanor, Eleanor insisted every decision had been made to protect the district's finances. Amara stepped to the microphone. Her voice was steady. "You did not protect this school," she said. "You protected the value of the land by lowering the value of the children who lived on it." Logan was called to testify. At first, he said nothing, because Sebastian kept signaling him to remain silent. Then Sebastian told the board that Logan had acted alone and that Whitmore Development accepted no responsibility for the behavior of one reckless teenager. Logan stared at his father, finally understanding that he was about to carry the entire crime by himself. He confessed that Sebastian had demanded Amara be removed from Brookstone before the end of the month. Hollis had taught him how to provoke her while avoiding obvious injuries to her face. Rhett handed over the messages ordering him to edit the video, and Madison admitted she had been paid to spread the clip and encourage public outrage. Eli entered with his wrists still bandaged, and testified that Pike had threatened and beaten him in detention. For one moment, it appeared the entire operation had been exposed. Then Sebastian's attorney stood and played a recording of Darius saying, "I will make every one of them pay." The lawyer claimed Darius had manipulated witnesses, planted evidence, and built the investigation as a personal revenge campaign. Eleanor immediately ordered the hearing suspended and demanded that Darius himself be investigated. A single edited sentence had turned the father from the strongest witness into a possible conspirator. Unless Amara could recover the words cut from the recording, everything they had uncovered could still be buried beneath one final lie. Everyone in the city hall heard the edited recording of Darius saying, "I will make every one of them pay." The words echoed through the chamber, and for a brief moment, the atmosphere shifted. Reporters exchanged glances. Parents whispered, and Sebastian Whitmore's attorney smiled, convinced the investigation had finally collapsed. But Amara remembered something no one else did. The moment her father had entered the cafeteria on the day she was attacked, he had calmly placed his phone on the table and started recording before speaking a single word. That recording had later been seized by police and eventually returned, but the original file had been set to upload automatically to the family's encrypted cloud account. Amara immediately asked Jonah to retrieve the backup. Within minutes, the untouched recording appeared on the courtroom screen. Darius's complete statement filled the room. "I will make every one of them pay," he had said. "With the truth, with the law, and with every piece of evidence they believe they erased." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Jonah then analyzed the metadata from Sebastian's recording and demonstrated that the audio had been edited inside Whitmore Development's legal office less than 2 hours before the previous hearing. The final attempt to destroy Darius's credibility collapsed in front of the entire city. State prosecutors moved quickly. Eleanor Price was arrested for conspiracy, fraude, corruption, and obstruction of justice. Sebastian Whitmore was charged with bribery, witness intimidation, manipulation of school disciplinary records, and conspiracy connected to the $42 million redevelopment project. Vincent Pike and Grant Hollis became targets of criminal investigations for destroying evidence, planting evidence, threatening witnesses, and abusing individuals in custody. Principal Ridley lost his educator's license and was removed from office. Evelyn Shaw agreed to cooperate with prosecutors, though she still faced charges for falsifying records and coercing minors into providing false statements. Logan Whitmore was expelled from the baseball team, suspended from school, and referred to juvenile court for assaulting Amara. Rhett and Madison received severe disciplinary sanctions but earned reduced penalties after turning over evidence and admitting their roles. Eli was fully cleared of every accusation, and the disciplinary records of his cousin and 18 other students were officially reopened for independent review. When Amara was invited to address the council, many expected her to demand revenge or ask that a building be named after her. Instead, she rejected symbolic victories. "A new sign cannot repair a broken system," she said. She proposed 5 reforms. Instead, all school cameras must be managed by an independent agency. Every digital change to disciplinary records must create permanent audit logs. Student witnesses must have immediate access to a parent, guardian, or attorney. Private donors must never influence disciplinary decisions, and every past case involving conveniently broken cameras must be reopened. After hours of debate, the district voted unanimously to create the South Briar Student Protection Office, an independent organization dedicated to protecting students from bullying, discrimination, retaliation, and administrative abuse. When officials offered Darius the position of director, he politely declined. This office should belong to the community, he said, not to a father remembered only because he happened to arrive at the right moment. 3 months later, Amara walked back into the Brookstone Heights cafeteria. The same table where Logan had grabbed her hair remained in place, but everything around it had changed. New cameras covered every corner. Posters explained anonymous reporting procedures, and students no longer looked away when someone needed help. Sophia was already waiting with a smile. Eli joined them a moment later, while Rhett quietly cleaned tables as part of his community service. Still carrying the consequences of his choices, Darius paused at the cafeteria entrance. Amara looked at him and smiled gently. "Dad," she said, "you arrived just in time that day." He smiled back. "I arrived in time to stop one hand," he answered. "You were the one who made an entire system let go of everyone else." Onebiwan. Students who had once stayed silent pulled their chairs toward Amara's table until she was no longer sitting alone. Weeks later, while helping organize the new Student Protection Office, Amara opened an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph of another black girl in the cafeteria of a neighboring school, her hair clenched in another bully's fist. A handwritten note lay beneath the picture. "They're using the same plan Brookstone used." Amara looked toward Darius. He did not answer for her this time. He simply waited. Amara picked up the phone, took a steady breath, and said, "So, where do we begin?" Justice didn't begin the moment Darius walked into that cafeteria. It began the moment Amara refused to become the angry victim her bullies wanted the world to see. Together, a father and daughter proved that truth is stronger than fear, and that even the most powerful people can fall when their lies are finally exposed. But one question still remains. If you had been in Amara's place, would you have stayed silent to protect yourself, or risked everything to expose the truth? Let us know your answer in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of courage, justice, and standing up against racism. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.